mics are on, I think. Oh, Matt, I brought this. This is, I bought one each one of us. Maybe we'll share with them. You want some?
Good evening. This is the Ridgewood Village Council Public Workshop. The date is December 3rd, 2025. The time is 7:32 p.m. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by a posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled same as provided by law of a schedule, including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Councilmember Mortimer.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Perrin.
Here.
Councilmember White.
Here.
Councilmember Winograd.
Here.
Mayor Vagianos.
Here, will you all please join us in a salute to our flag? And we're going to take something a little out of order tonight. We have people from Matrix who are going to give us an environmental update on the Shedler property. So we're going to do that before public comments so that if anyone has questions, they can be better informed before they ask their questions. So, ladies and gentlemen, will you please come up and join us?
Mayor, at this time, I'd like to introduce Sharon Stecker. She is a vice president at Matrix New World Engineering, and she is here tonight with two familiar faces, Melissa Fiore, who is an environmental scientist and the project manager on the Shedler site, and Chris Pittarisi, who is the LSRP, who's working on the project as well. So Sharon, I'll turn over the presentation to you.
Thank you very much. I know everybody probably has some questions for these two here on schedule and path forward, but before we get there, there's been some angst out there around the remediation and the selection of the remedy, and I'd like to just make a statement and be very brief, but I want to get something on the record if you don't mind.
By all means, thank you all for coming tonight.
So, good evening, council members. My name is Sharon Stecker. I'm a vice president and director of environmental services with Matrix New World Engineering. I've spent more than 3 decades working with agencies, developers, private industry all across New Jersey on complex environmental challenges, projects that have ranged from brownfield redevelopment to the cleanup and restoration of contaminated properties, some of which were intended for public use. Much of my work focuses on helping support our teams and our clients in moving projects forward safely, transparently, and in a way that stands up to regulatory scrutiny and public expectations. As you all know, over the past year and a half, our team, and these two in particular, with my oversight, have worked to evaluate the environmental conditions at the Shedler property. That work has included soil sampling, delineation of impacted areas, evaluation of an appropriate remedial action, and preparation of the full NJDEP required documentation. All of this has now culminated in a DEP-approved remedial action work plan, which formally authorizes the cleanup approach we've recommended. I want to take a moment to explain why removal and disposal was selected and why it's clearly the most protective, predictable, and appropriate remedy for future recreational complex. First, the end use matters. The NJDEP has very stringent cleanup standards, and rightfully so. Excavation and disposal is the only alternative that fully removes the contaminated fill from the property, eliminating ongoing exposure pathways, long-term maintenance burdens as well. Second, removal is the most predictable and permanent solution. Other technologies, and specifically bioremediation, which I know has brought some attention and been raised by some, can take years to reach targeted contamination concentration levels. It involves uncertainty in how contaminants respond, particularly in heterogeneous environments, which is what we have here on this property. It requires long-term monitoring and still ultimately may not achieve the standards required. Removal, on the other hand, provides immediate, measurable results. It's the most straightforward path to regulatory closure, and is the only option that gives the township certainty on completion and compliance. Third, we've heard community concerns about truck traffic, noise, and dust. These are all important considerations. I want to underscore that just like hundreds of other similar projects across New Jersey, these issues can be fully managed through standard construction best practices, including things like controlled truck hours, dust suppression, air monitoring, and clear communication with residents and other stakeholders, such as the police department. We will be developing plans to address those details more further once we continue to advance. These are not new challenges, and we know exactly how to address them. Finally, the township should take confidence in the fact that NJDEP has already reviewed and approved the Remedial Action Work Plan. That approval means the plan meets the state standards for protectiveness and is recognized as an appropriate path to restoring the property for safe public use. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you and get on the record with this. Chris and Melissa and I are happy to answer any questions you might have.
Council, questions?
What did you mean by a heterogeneous area?
Not a singular type of material. So you've got debris, you've got solid waste, you've got a mix of material. It's not one solid, like lens of sand. It's a mix of materials.
Thank you.
Others?
So just to jump in a little bit deeper with the bioremediation, I think that there's some thought that it's like just spraying the stuff on the existing berm. Could you detail, like, just hypothetically, how would that happen?
Yeah, bioremediation is a contact sport, as they say. And it very much, again, that's why the heterogeneous comment's important. It involves an ability to get nutrients that would, in essence, support the bug, activity. You've got to get that contact. You've got to, be able to connect nutrients or whatever substrate might be with those bugs in the subsurface for them to do their thing. That's a complicated mechanism. It, involves a lot related, what's going to work best anaerobically, what bugs are there. Do we have to introduce bugs? Is it, a chemistry that needs to be altered? So it does involve, in some cases, mixing, doing quite a bit of mixing in the soil, so it would involve construction on the property as well. It, in some cases, involves ex situ treatment, so you could dig it all out, try to treat it with bugs, put it back in. It's a complicated science that, is not foolproof, and, again, just in comparison to excavating and removing materials, that removal action rises much higher very quickly in terms of a preferred alternative.
So to be clear, what you're saying is that the berm would not be intact with these introduced to it. The berm would have to be physically taken apart and mixed, because it's a contact sport, with the bugs, and I love bugs, to make sure that it worked.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
And can you just elaborate on the timing for bioremediation, as well as I think what you referred to as the uncertainty of it?
Yes, again, the uncertainty is you just don't know. There's so many variables. So all those variables have to be tested over time. You've got to do pilot testing. You've got to do, additional analysis. And bioremediation takes time. It takes time to activate bacteria. It takes time to test whether it's working or not. And again, depending on the compounds, you get something that's referred to as rebound. So you could think you've solved a problem and then come back a year later and it's come back. So again, there's a lot of nuance around this, and I certainly don't want to try to oversimplify it, but just give you a feel that it's not as simple as spreading some things on the ground and having, contamination disappear.
It sounds like if it's mixing, then that would also, you'd have the same potential for dust as you would excavating.
Correct.
Yeah.
And have you used the excavating technique that you're suggesting and DEP has now approved? Have you used that in similar sites before? And if so, can you describe successes or issues that you've had with those elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, that's being done all across the state, has been done for the last 30 years. And again, it's a preferred remedy for a project just like this, where we want certainty.
Through you, Mayor. So Sharon, we began this journey, so to speak, late 2023. We were notified by the NJDEP. By spring of '24, we were in the ground. I think the first time Melissa and Chris joined us at a council meeting to read out on the soil berm sampling results was June of '24. So we've been working with you guys for some time. During that time period, the two recommendations, or I shouldn't say recommendations, the two discussions about how to remediate the site. At one point, we did talk about capping, that was ruled out. And then ultimately, a recommendation became excavation and the removal of the soil from the site. Can you just talk about the highest standard that DEP has, and I believe it's the residential standard?
That's correct.
And that would be the most conservative,
That's
right?
correct, yep.
We would have to bring it to the highest level of cleanliness, for lack of a better term. And how that ties into a prospective park being built on that site, and why that is Matrix recommendation.
Yeah, it's a permanent solution that is protective of human health and the environment. So, you said it, DEP came up with these standards looking at various criteria, and if you're going to have children and residents on this property, you want to go with the highest standard,
Which would be the residential
which
standard.
would be the residential standard.
And as far as, nothing's guaranteed in life, but as far as highest degree of success, because just so the council's aware, this came up, and I think they've all watched it, or most of the council people have watched it on YouTube. But the meeting that we had with the community, and Chris and Melissa were both there, and the public brought up some very good questions. Some of that information had actually been new to me, the bioremediation specifically, and so we went back and had some extensive conversations with your team. But as far as the guaranteeing with a high level of certainty the success of remediating this site, how does the excavation recommendation compare to the bioremediation concept?
It de-risks that uncertainty.
Okay. That's all I have, Mayor.
I have a couple questions. First, thank you all for being here. You guys have been here so many times. It's like there's been a path worn between your office and ours. Sharon, you've used several terms with respect to bioremediation. You called it a complicated scheme. You talked about uncertainty. With excavation, you talked about predictable and permanent. We're making this into a park where our children are going to play. Is there any choice here?
I don't think so.
So, really, excavation is your only recommendation?
It is the best recommendation for the project.
And is this something that the DEP prefers?
Yes, it is, because we're going to have to meet residential standards. Again, we're de-risking it, we're making it permanent, we're making it protective for human health and the environment.
And our plan has already been approved?
Yep.
I have nothing else. Anybody else?
I do want to echo Paul's thanks. Very much appreciate it. I read all the material, it's very well put together as well.
Yeah. Thank you all so much.
Through you, Mayor, I have one other follow-up. So Sharon, one of the other concerns that I think is worth mentioning, we have some residents who live in that neighborhood who are with us here tonight. One of the other concerns that was brought up and a lot of questions were asked were the safety precautions that the team would take, and that ultimately the contractor, who is the lowest responsible bidder once we put the bid specifications out, what safety procedures and safety precautions will be put in place during the removal? Can you just explain that to the council and also
Yeah.
for the benefit of the public who's here tonight?
Yep, and we'll work with the contractor to sort of finalize some of those, but we will develop a plan for air monitoring. We will develop a plan for traffic control. We'll develop a plan for noise mitigation. All that gets worked into a detailed plan of what we're doing, how we're analyzing, where those monitors would be placed. That's a next step. That's a next step on the project.
Great.
And then for the council's edification on the village side, we've already opened up dialogue with the superintendent of schools. If any bus stops need to be temporarily relocated further into the neighborhood to avoid children interacting with any type of truck traffic or anything of that nature, Mark is very open to working with the police department on that for that temporary period while the excavation is happening. And we've also started to talk, Melissa and I've had some extensive conversations about public notification, that if an air quality monitor did go off, what the notification processes would be, how we'd get in touch with the residents, if that were necessary. So we're working on both of those initiatives internally relative to the safety during the course of the project.
Thank you all so much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Safe home. Yeah, they're heading out.
We can send the videotape if we want to. We direct the tape.
And now we'll go to public comment.
You want to say the new thing?
Just so you're aware, there will be a 2-minute warning bell, and then, so that lets you know that there'll be 1 minute left. When the buzzer goes off, I will say time is up, okay?
Okay. Ann Loving, Ridgewood resident. First of all, it was predictable that they would leave, because that's what always happens, and they're being paid. I don't understand why they couldn't stay for the few minutes of public comments. That's dismaying, but expected. I also did a lot of reading about bioremediation after the Thursday meeting a few weeks ago, and I think that what was presented here tonight was totally an oversimplification of it's not that reliable, there's uncertainty. Bioremediation is, from what I see, a really fantastic way of clearing chemicals from the soil. First of all, looking at the bigger picture, if you take this dirt and move it somewhere else, you're kicking the can down the road. It's still got all those dangerous chemicals in it. So that's not very responsible to the greater good of the earth that we're just moving it out. Why not fix it where it is? Secondly, the berm. If the berm could stay in place, then you've got this massive, huge protection for the children because trucks and cars aren't going through that berm. And I know, I've seen a lot of photos that my husband has taken. Those guardrails will not stop an 18-wheeler that's out of control on Route 17. Some cars flip over them. I mean, it's totally crazy to just have a guardrail when you could have a berm, and we could keep the berm if we could do bioremediation. If you could do bioremediation on the level land, then you wouldn't have to dig 4 feet deep around these trees, which will kill the trees. So, you know, you could do that as well. If you did bioremediation, you wouldn't have to have trucks rumbling around, spilling airborne particles of poison and so on. I mean, it would just be so much better. To me, it would be so much cleaner. The lady from Matrix said that there's uncertainty with bioremediation. Well, first of all, this plan, according to Mr. Kazmark a few Thursday nights ago, we're not even going to test at the end. So there's going to be uncertainty with the current plan because we're not going to test the soil when it's over. So that's pretty major uncertainty right there that I don't understand. Uncertainty, I asked, what is the foam you're going to put down to keep the dust at bay in freezing weather? They didn't know. The foam is going to be chemicals, something other than dihydrogen monoxide, but uncertainty, they didn't know what it is. I can't understand why you wouldn't go for this. I mean, in science, learning new things and coming up with new ways, that's what scientists do. And as responsible leaders, here we go, 6 seconds, you should definitely consider this. I think it's fantastic.
Time is up.
Thank you, Ann.
Patty Infantino, 6 Betty Court. I have to agree with you. What happens is that when we went to the meeting with these people, we found out that 35 trees were going to have to be taken down, that the 80 trees that are up on the berm now, and they have the roots in this soil that has to be cleaned up, are going to have to be moved, and there's a good chance that they're not going to even make it. The 35 trees that you're going to take down are big, old-growth trees. Tonight, she talked about foolproof. That's a word I wouldn't use, because they're not going to test. They're going to do all this remediation, take out all of this, the berm and all the soil, and then in the end, they're not going to test? I mean, it seems insane. And when we asked them, what's the chance, since now you're going to be at the highway without the berm, that because of the cars and so forth, that there's going to be more contaminants in the soil? And they said last time they can't prove that there won't be. So I'm pointing out to you that this is a really bad plan, I think, and I really wish you would look at it again.
Thank you, Patty.
Dr. Salvo Infantino, 6 Betty Court. I met with the remediation team the other night when they had their meeting, and we had a long conversation about what they're about to do. And I pointed out to them, I've been practicing my whole life as a physician, you need to get to the origin of the problem if you want to really have a remediation. What they're proposing is a temporary fix to a problem that is going to come back. They admitted when I spoke to them that any land along a busy highway like that is constantly being contaminated. So by taking this dirt away, you're just going to have a 6-month reprieve. Within 6 months, that earth is going to be contaminated again with all the pollutants that are spewing from Route 17. There is no way that this is going to stop. So either you stop the traffic on Route 17 and don't have those trucks going up, hitting their brakes with the sparks of the brake lining and the tires that are being consumed, that are being spewed within 100 meters of that highway. Or you possibly can do bioremediation, which those bacteria that remain in the earth will combat the pollutants that are going there, and maybe will keep the levels of pollution down. But also, to their admission, when they tested the earth where the trees were not was highly polluted, but the earth under the trees was not as polluted, because those trees served as a filter, filtering the land of the pollutants. I've been here many times, and I've told you, I think this is insane, that you're going to be putting a field there. You're putting our children in harm's way. You know, if I was younger, I'd run a study of cohorts of children playing in that field, and I guarantee you I'm going to come up with a spike in neoplastic diseases, cardiorespiratory diseases in those children. It is unfathomable and irresponsible that a playing field in 2025, when we know what we know, to be built over there. I know there are fields along highways all over the United States of America. I know that people used to smoke all the time. We learned, and we don't smoke anymore. We should learn that building a field for children on a busy highway is putting them in harm's way. And I have discussed it with them. You can talk to them. There is no way that you're going to stop the pollutants from that highway spewing on that earth after you finish. And if you test that land afterwards, it's going to be polluted again. So I think you need to really consider what you're doing, because I think it's malpractice to put a field in that area. You're going to be hurting people's lives. I think you need to look at your consciences a little bit. I've come here a million times. I know you don't listen.
Time is
to me.
up.
I don't know where you think I'm coming from, but everything I say is backed up by scientific data and medical data. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Sal.
Hi, I'm Nancy Friedman, 526 West Saddle River Road. Was reluctant even to come to the meeting tonight because I feel like I've been coming to these since 2013. and it feels like shouting into an echo chamber with no one listening. So tonight you referenced that you were informed of the problem in 2023, that you were already in meetings in spring of '24. Here we are, it's the end of 2025, and there's talk about monitoring and how we're going to communicate when the levels get too high for the residents and when they should be informed. And it's ironic, really, because the village dumped it there to begin with. And it was tested before it was put there, so the village did know before they even put it there. No one was worried about notifying anyone then. They were hoping to bury it in the dirt. And they talked about certainty and how there'll be certainty if they do this plan. I don't think there's certainty with any plan. And there's certainly not certainty if you're not going to test the soil after you've done it. If you're going to remove something cancerous from your body, they'd have to test the margins around where they did it to know that they got it. In this instance, they're telling us, oh, nope, this is the most reliable way, and we're not going to test it again because we trust ourselves. And that's simply not responsible. Also, we're worried about moving bus stops, coordinating schedules. We have a shortened number of daylight hours in winter, potentially frozen ground. It makes no sense to rush this through in January. If you moved it to the summer, you wouldn't have to worry about the bus schedule. Lots of people are traveling. They wouldn't maybe be as impacted by this. And it's really a shame that they didn't stay, because another concern I have is, and I think many have already voiced, is the number of truckloads that are coming in and out. I'm not sure why they didn't look at using the other side of the site where they could just get right on Route 17. You wouldn't have to drive through the neighborhood. So you could reroute those trucks so they never drive down the block. I think that's pretty much all I have. It's just been a long and frustrating process, and the collective village councils, not just you, but everybody who's been in your seat since then, really feels like they've been disingenuous in the whole process.
Thank you.
Cynthia O'Keefe, Ridgewood resident. Yeah, I would echo the concerns and the comments from everybody who spoke about this plan. I think it's a terrible plan to rush through. Keith, when you first got here as village manager, you asked me to come to your office, and I did. And I told you that the Shedler neighborhood has zero trust in all of you sitting up there on the dais. And you've done nothing to regain our trust in all this time, nothing. And you were invited into everybody's living rooms to talk about this, and it's been nothing but a disappointment. So the overdevelopment of that property is a disappointment. This plan, this remediation plan that you're trying to rush through in January, you know, and we've been criticized as neighbors that we come up with X and Y and Z and all these other things. We live in this neighborhood. We're trying to protect the children, our whole community. Everybody's living in fear, and I don't know what part of that you don't understand. You know, we talk about decorum, and, you know, Paul wasn't here that night. You talked about how, you know, we as the public should come to you and have manners when we're speaking. I think many of us have been lumped into a category of, you know, lobbing insults, and, you know, I have not done that, but yet you always, it's like the us and the them. Just like sports and, you know, the Shedler neighborhood. You've put us in a very awkward position where people have been bullied. This is a really terrible situation. And now you're talking about bringing in truckloads of dirt, and, you know, you have this plan, and I think somebody else said it, there's zero trust. We feel like sitting ducks in this neighborhood. There are people who have asthma. There are people who are on an oxygen machine. The woman who lives right next to the property. Have you considered that? Have you factored in anybody's health risks? It is unconscionable that you are going to do what you're going to do. And, you know, I'm very disappointed in each and every one of you for, you know, trying to rubber stamp and steamroll this plan through. It is not safe, and it's, you know, you can say whatever you want because you're going to do it anyway. But it's really disappointing that nobody's slowing down and saying, let's make sure we have all the bells and the whistles. And you even said, Keith, that we have a very robust communication plan among neighbors, and that, what are you going to do? Are you going to go out there with a bullhorn? There's dust out there, everybody duck. What are you going to do? What's the plan? Because I don't have any confidence that we should feel safe in our own neighborhood. You know, from a breathing standpoint, from everything.
Time is up.
It's just very sad. Thank you, Heather. I heard the bell. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Anybody else? Sure.
Yeah, totally.
Pam Welch, Ridgewood resident. I understand today was a court case with Kensington, the town, and Matt Rogers. I just wanted to find out, did that happen today? And if it did, is there more than one meeting? What is the process going forward from this point? That's all I have. I'm not asking what happened, just the process.
Thank you, Pam. Anyone else? Seeing no one, we'll go to our participants in hybrid access. Mr. Hallaby, you're first up.
Yeah, Rurik Hallaby, village resident. I address this to the many good people living north of Route 17. I appreciate your concerns and confusion with all the noise and misinformation being bandied about the development of Shedler. We have a first-class village council and village manager who have set the standard for competence, honesty, and open communication. After some 15 years of the village spinning its wheels on developing Shedler, we have a village council that is committed to finishing Shedler into a park that the neighbors and all of Ridgewood will be proud of. I suggest you, the neighbors, work directly with the council to help alleviate your fears and concerns, and not those who supposedly represent you. And my advice to the handful of people who have created much of the noise is to sit back and think about what you are doing. You come up with any argument you can think of to delay or derail the project, including, for example, you can't develop Shedler because would you believe we have eagles nesting, and on, one silly excuse after another. It's kind of crazy. My advice to you, the antis, is to stop your negative hand-to-hand combat approach and to work positively with the village council and village manager. You are all smart, articulate, analytical, and energetic. You can do so much good. For instance, the Shedler House. Siobhan Winograd and Keith Kasmark have found great use for the house. What can you do to make the house an even better asset for Ridgewood? Much has been said about the turf field poisoning the local wells. If anything has poisoned the wells, it is the runoff from Route 17. What can you do to connect the homes to Ridgewood water? Lastly, what will replace the berm? Hopefully a wall and not a fence. What can you do to affect that? Or even better, do what the Germans do, which is to line their highways with solar panels. Can you imagine a solar panel a third of a mile long and 20 feet high? It will generate enough electricity for 1,000 homes and save 1 million tons of CO2 from going into the air. I realize this sounds like another crazy Rurik idea, but if the Germans can do it, why not Americans? Also, crazy ideas is what makes the world go round. Again, to the antis, who have done everything you can to derail the project, do what you can to work positively with the council and the village manager. It's a shame to waste your talents. And to the village council and to Keith, you're doing a tremendous job. Just get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Rurik. Susan, you're up.
Hi, Susan Ruan. I'm a village resident. I just have a question, and this is, I heard that the residential is the highest. grade for them to remediate. However, I'm uncertain because I know that the people have already left.
Susan, if you could speak a little more slowly and clearly, because we can't, it's not coming through clearly.
Can you start with the question?
Yeah, if you could start over, we'll give you some additional time.
Can you hear me now better?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I know that people left already regarding the remediation. And they said that the residential remediation is the highest. However, again, I'm uncertain why Orchard, which was also remediated for similar circumstances, that that particular soil was tested again and again after remediation, and the field was closed. And I remember hearing the sports people complaining about the field being closed as they're down one field. And why is that seems to be a higher level of remediation than what is being done at Shedler? Because as soon as they're done, they don't have continuing testing like they did at Orchard. So again, I'm not certain why they say that one level is the highest, but what was done at Orchard seems to be even more efficient or more better. On a separate topic, thank you for the footbridge being opened and finished. All right, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Anyone else?
Boyd A. Loving, Ridgewood resident and Ridgewood taxpayer. I don't think it was more than 1 or 2 meetings ago that there was a call from this council for people to be respectful to everyone in the room. We just heard Mr. Hallaby refer to us as silly and crazy, and you didn't stop him. I don't understand that. You asked for everybody to be respectful or they'd be thrown out of the room, but yet we just heard a man refer to some of these people in the room as silly and crazy. This has got to stop. If we are going to be treated in one way and he's going to be treated in another way, we're going to have trouble. Thank you.
Thank you, Boyd. And with that, I'm going to close public comment. Council, would anyone like to respond to any of the comments made tonight?
I just want to address the one comment about the litigation going on with Kensington. And I know everybody's interested in this and wants to know what's going on. Problem is, it is litigation. We don't usually comment on litigation. There was a conference today. The judge did say in the conference that everything remains confidential from the settlement conference. So there's limited information we can give at this time. There'll be more forthcoming. But at this point in time, tonight, I can't really speak further to it. So,
And Matt, Pam was asking about the process. What happens now? Is the
I was trying to explain this to John Fry earlier. The process at this point in time is kind of called a program, and the fourth round rules that have been set up with this recent round of affordable housing requirements is called the fourth round, and it's called the program. Part of the program, you have a judge that sits in Superior Court that oversees your housing element and fair share plan. You also have a separate settlement judge. And right now, we are before the separate settlement judge. And that settlement judge is required to see if the judge can settle the case, settle all issues before the end of the year. Because if things aren't settled, the judge makes a determination of what should happen next and makes a recommendation to the Superior Court judge as to what might go next. So we're in the process of dealing with the settlement at this point in time, or potential for a settlement. And depending upon what happens with that, the judge will make a recommendation. The settlement judge will make a recommendation to what I call the trial judge, the one in Superior Court, and determine, with that recommendation, decide what should be done with our fair share and housing element. So that's part of the process. I think it's all meant to finish before midway through 2027. But I can't say, no, through 2026 rather. I can't say that I know right now when it's going to finish, but that's what it's geared toward. So.
Matt, did we schedule another settlement conference?
The judge scheduled another settlement conference.
And when is that for?
December 11th.
And that's the next step in the process. That's as far as we've gotten on that. Okay? Boyd, to your comment about silly and crazy, forgive me, I heard the word silly. I did not hear the word crazy. I'm not saying he said it or didn't say it, but I did not hear it. And I thought that silly was right at the edge, but not over the line. So that was just my opinion. I try and be as consistent as I can. I have interrupted that individual as many times as I've interrupted anybody else. So I try and be fair all the way around. Other comments?
Sure. So I want to say a couple things in response. So to Suzanne, not all remediations are the same, and this is simply because I'm an Orchard resident. Orchard is coal contamination, and the method for their remediation, because coal is a different particulate, used to be, an industrial area there, was to cap it. So if you want to write us, we can connect you with the Board of Ed and their LSRP, because Board of Ed land is separate, but their contamination was a dust particulate of coal. I know that because I live in the area and I went to it. And their method was capping, which meant to put 18 inches of extra on top. So that's one standard. If you want more detail, we can make that connection with the Board of Ed for you. I want to separate Shedler into two parts, and I'm only going to speak to the remediation because we have two things occurring. We have park development, which has been controversial with this council, and then we have the remediation. For me, when I took my seat, I had no knowledge that there had been 6 sources of dirt. There was no testing provided to us or the public at that time. It was, if I were being critical of the prior council, the actual fact that they failed to hire an LSRP is how the contaminant came to be. When anybody handling dirt, hire an LSRP, which is what we did here with taxpayer money. So upon taking my seat, and I believe everybody up here, nobody had knowledge that the dirt was dirty or how many sources of contamination there were. To Dr. Infantino, the contamination that's being removed is attributed to the imported dirt, not the highway. So the test results are a particular element that came with the dirt that came in, not the exceedances don't relate to Route 17. So the testing that we did, similar to the delineation, the dirty dirt has to go. It's a fait accompli. The area needs to be remediated. And I hear the community that there's different ways to do it. The cleanest way in my decision-making process that will have the highest rates is actually to excavate it. It's got to go. I feel terrible about this. I feel terrible that nobody knew about it, that we had to disclose it to the public. It's been an enormous required amount of money to test, delineate, and provide the public with this. But remediation, I believe for the full council, is a fait accompli. It has to go. We have to, whether we did nothing, no turf, nothing, we have to remediate this land. And that's just a community problem that we all need to sit in and understand. The decision we are making is to do excavation. And I understand and I hear everybody, but nobody on this council brought this dirt in. Nobody, when they took their seat, had an understanding. So in part 1, we're remediating. We have to. It needs to be done. It's required. It's an important piece of land. We have a $2.6 million asset of the house that we never talk about. The park development comments, I'm going to leave in park development, but for the entire Ridgeway community, the remediation is a fait accompli. The decision, it has to be done. We have to remediate. Nobody would say it can remain contaminated. So I hope that when we speak about that, we don't put the two issues together. The project that we're doing is to remediate, and the secondary park development, I'm not insensitive to it's contentious, but I think the entire town needs to understand this dirty dirt needs to be removed, and I think at this point we're just splitting hairs of how it's going to be removed. Our technical experts that we hired are making a recommendation, and we're going to do that. And with community outreach, if anybody wants more, let us know. Write us. We'll figure out a way. I mean, Keith has been masterful at communication. I understand it's going to impact your quality of life. I went through this with Orchard. I live in the Orchard district. We're here for that discussion. So when this starts, we will communicate. If we make a misstep, we will apologize. But we are going to remediate this land, and then we're going to build in the second park a park.
Anyone else?
Mayor, just a few points of clarity. First, there was some discussion tonight about the berm staying intact. So in my discussions with Matrix, and I am far from the expert on this, but the way it's been explained to me is that if bioremediation were ever pursued on a site like this, the berm would need to be taken apart. And I think Frank alluded to that during his questioning of Matrix this evening. The berm as it stands today, which, you know, is a protective barrier, and I think that was the intent of the prior administration to build the berm in conjunction with a potential park, that berm would need to be taken apart regardless, whether it was through bioremediation and needed to be spread out around the property in order to properly treat the dirt, or through excavation, which we've discussed. So I just wanted to clarify that the berm would not be able to stay in either scenario. Secondly, the dirt is being taken away by a certified hauler who has expertise in removing this type of material from properties where soil remediation needs to take place, and it's going to be taken to an approved facility. What they do with it at that approved facility, I do not know, but it is not just going to be taken elsewhere. It is going to be taken to a specific location that accepts this type of material. With regard to the berm and what replaces it, as I mentioned at prior meetings, and I did mention at the community meeting back on November 13th, we are in discussion with the New Jersey Department of Transportation. I've had multiple conversations with the assistant commissioner there about what would be the best option beyond just a guardrail. Those conversations are continuing, and at some point we will also involve Suburban, who is responsible for the park development, to engage in those conversations as well. With regard to the follow-up testing after the excavation, it was explained at the community meeting on November 13th and in subsequent conversations that we've had with Matrix. The New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection does not require testing in a situation like this at the end of the project. And the reason that is all the testing is done up front. And the depths and the width of what needs to be excavated has already been delineated. It's already been identified. In all of these sessions that we've had where Matrix has been present, most of what they've talked about with regard to the soil testing was the delineation process. And they've already identified what needs to be removed in order to make the site clean. Everything they've done has been with the full approval of the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. The NJDEP does not require testing at the end because all the testing has been done up front, and all of the soil that has been tested and determined required to be removed will be removed as part of this excavation process. So I just want to explain, again, for the public's edification and also for the council, why there is not a testing process at the end of the project. And lastly, Matrix has also advised me that regardless of the process that we would go through, whether it's excavation, which is what's going to be pursued, or whether this other option of bioremediation would be considered, those 35 trees that are in the delineated area would need to be removed regardless of the path forward. So I just wanted to clarify some of those points that were of public concern tonight.
Yeah, and I want to jump in. This is a DEP-approved plan. For anyone who is unaware, the DEP has not been easy to get our plan approved. They are very stringent. They're to the letter of what needs to be done. And in our discussions with our experts, first, let me explain how the experts work, and I've said this before. We hire them, we pay them, they don't answer to us. They answer to the DEP. They don't do what we want to do. They do what the DEP wants them to do. And when we discussed with them the possibility of bioremediation, they said, we cannot recommend this under any circumstances. These are people who have not just done some reading on it. This is what they do for a living. They're environmental scientists. They put the plan together, sent it to the DEP, and the DEP questioned it, checked it, made sure it's what they wanted. It's not what we want, it's not what you want, it's what the DEP wants, because they know what they're doing. And to Keith's point, in that testing, again, the reason that it's done like that is that, and I'll just pick numbers out of the air, if they dig to 3 feet and there's contamination, but then they dig in a grid to 4 feet and there is no contamination, then if they dig, then the plan is approved based upon that there is no contamination at 4 feet or whatever it was in the plan. So that's why it's done ahead of time, so that everyone knows where this is going. Anybody else? No? Thank you. Then we will move on to our regular agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving with friends and family. We've been hard at work here in the village, and I just have a few updates on some of the projects that are before us. First, with regard to the West Glen Avenue sidewalks, a letter went out updating residents as to the status of the project before Thanksgiving. Back in October, the Village Council adopted Resolution 25414, authorizing the purchase of decorative modular concrete retaining wall blocks that have been selected by our engineering department for this project. On Wednesday, November 12th, the Village Council adopted Resolution 25448, awarding the geotechnical and civil engineering design services needed to build these retaining walls. The work is expected to begin within the next several weeks, and it will start with a geotechnical investigation to evaluate the subgrade soil conditions along those properties. The geotechnical findings will then be used to finalize the wall design. Once the design is complete, the village will bid out the construction of the retaining walls and the sidewalks. We anticipate that bid to be opened in March of 2026 with an expected award in April. If all proceeds as planned, the construction work should begin this spring. We thank everyone for their patience regarding this project. It is a complex endeavor and significant legal work, and I want to thank Matt Rogers went into this, including the need to attain easements and right of access agreements from the residents who are going to see the sidewalks placed in front of their house. But we're now ready to move forward, and all the approvals are given. So at this point, it just comes down to the bid cycle and the weather, and when the weather breaks in the spring. Very pleased to report that we received a grant for $259,000 from the NJDOT for the resurfacing of West Ridgewood Avenue from Garber Square to Maltby Avenue. We are looking forward to this improvement on the west side, and we want to thank Senator Corrado and Assemblyman DePhillips and Barlas for their support in helping to secure these funds. This week, we announced our overnight parking portal. I want to thank the leadership of the Ridgewood Police Department and the folks over at Central Dispatch for helping to create an online overnight request portal. This will notify Central Dispatch so that overnight parking calls or reporting is easier and more convenient for our residents rather than have a call in each night. We hope that this will assist residents with this task. And if there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to my office, and we will happily guide anyone through the use of the new portal. Last Wednesday, Downs Tree Service cut down and donated our village Christmas tree, which they transported across town and set in place by the train station. Don't miss the tree lighting this Friday night for the Chamber of Commerce's Downtown for the Holidays event. Again, that's December 5th at 6:45 p.m. The festivities start at 5 p.m. for a special kids' hour featuring music, arts, crafts, hot cocoa, and more. The East Ridgewood Avenue crosswalk. Last week, the Engineering Division and the Police Department set up a temporary crosswalk on East Ridgewood Avenue near Tate Bakery and Cafe in response to safety concerns. This coming spring, the village will evaluate the crossing and consider making it permanent with new curbing and striping. On November 17th, the village hosted a ribbon-cutting ceremony at the ADA Accessible Playground at Habernickel Park. Thank you to the Parks and Recreation Department and the Ridgewood Access Committee for their work on this project and for helping to secure a $68,000 state DCA grant to help offset the cost to get it done. Pleased to report that the fittings and install for the new flood dams on level 1 of Village Hall have been completed. Thank you to our signal division for helping to spearhead this effort and to help protect the building from future flood events. Very pleased to announce that the village has officially passed the 1 million minute mark as part of the mayor's wellness campaign. Let's keep the momentum going for the next few days, as there is still time to log in even more minutes for the Wellness Challenge before the deadline this Friday. And finally, on November 14th, we held a kickoff meeting with Walker Consulting relative to the parking and wayfinding study in the Central Business District. We met, reviewed objectives, and discussed how to best collect feedback from business owners and from the public at large. We anticipate holding 2 community meetings after the holidays to engage the public on the important topic of parking in Ridgewood. Community partners, which include the Chamber of Commerce, the Guild, and the Ridgewood Business Alliance, will also be part of the study. While we have many areas to review as part of this work effort, the goal is simply to make the downtown Ridgewood experience easier and simpler for those coming downtown to shop, dine, and enjoy our Central Business District. And that concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Keith. Let's go to council reports. Frank?
Thank you, Mayor. A long time ago, on November 13th, the Open Space Committee met. We celebrated the referendum win and discussed the goals for 2026. And the Open Space Committee is planning on setting a list of objectives that we'll share with the council and some of the things they'd like to do with the added funds. We also discussed the clearing of the Green Acres diversion and how we should go after grants once we're eligible again for that. On November 20th, Citizen Safety Committee met regarding Maple and Franklin. Our engineering department provided a detailed report on that intersection and what is possible and not possible. And one of the outcomes of that was that they're going to restripe all the crosswalks. They're going to do it as soon, weather permitting, right now. And then once Maple is resurfaced, then they'll do it more permanent with thermoplastic. Additionally, the police department reported on the number of accidents over a 5-year period at Maple and Franklin. And what they said was that the overall number is far below the number of accidents at other intersections, such as Linwood and Maple. And there was only one that involved a pedestrian. We also discussed site triangle updates. 3 additional properties have come into compliance. 1 new summons has been issued, and now the total number of compliances is up to 121. West Glen sidewalks, I'm not going to repeat anything that Keith said. I will just add that a repurchase order has been issued for the retaining walls, and if you'd like to see what they look like, go to the Chestnut Village Apartments. If you're looking at it and the YMCA is behind you, enter on the left side and straight back, and that's what the retaining walls will be. And I was really surprised at how natural and good that looks, so I'm excited to see it. And then finally, I wanted to say that I, along with several of my colleagues, attended the New Jersey League of Municipalities. This was obviously my first time there. I found it to be very informative. There were some great sessions, and I learned a lot. For one thing, myself, along with Deputy Mayor and Councilwoman Winograd, we took the risk management course, which was informative. And the best thing is it actually lowers the village's insurance because we attended. And then my favorite session overall was governing with AI. And it just really, it was a well-done presentation and sparked a lot of ideas of how it could make the village more efficient. And we could also provide more information to the residents. So I'm hoping that some of the stuff I gained there that I can work with staff to put into practice. And most importantly, it was just a very productive experience that I believe will help me serve the community better. And that's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Frank. Siobhan?
Sure. So I have several updates. Just to echo what Keith said, I wanted to encourage everybody to visit the Habernacle Playground. It is lovely, and it was a joint effort between Access and the Parks Department. You will notice some inclusionary elements worth noting. There's a ramp that is, much more accessible for kids who have mobility issues. There's also a feelings board for nonverbal children at all ages. It's also a fun way to communicate with anybody. I really want to thank Access for participating in the park selection, and of course, the Parks Department for being open to it. If you have not been, I highly suggest you get there. In addition to that, I too attended the League of Municipalities. I want to thank Heather and her office who registered for us and made all the plans, which not just for the council, but the village. So thank you to everybody for making that happen. And immediately after Habernickel is that there's this movement, which I'm going to be speaking and have spoken of, that Jake's Law grants are available. And while Habernickel's ADA, there is the sentiment from the Access Committee that we need to do more, and an inclusionary playground should be Ridgewood's next step. There was a lot of vendor information, and this is a very interesting thing for the village to consider. Obviously, we want all children of all ages and levels to play. For the disabled child, it's very important, but equally important is for their siblings. So thank you to Heather for making all those classes available to all of us. I feel like you have not lived until you've been to Atlantic City for this session. I also wanted to let the community know that this year we've winterized the pots in town. So we have these brand new lovely pots that were quasi-public, private through donations, and we've winterized them with balsam fir and elements that really beautify our main street, and they also prevent people from using our lovely planters as trash receptacles. I want to thank all of the Ridgewood beautification team and everybody who came out to do this. I also want to thank everybody. You'll notice that the kissing balls and the snowflakes are out. All of them are pre-tested by a lot of elves that got underneath the ramp of the garage and got in there and made sure that all of the bulbs are lit. If you do happen to notice anything out, please let us know. There's over 100 kissing balls and dozens of snowflakes, and we're hoping it'll inspire people to be happy, enjoy the season, and support our local downtown. I also attended the Fields Committee meeting this week. I just want a couple updates that because our fields are so overutilized, both the Board of Ed and the village is going to extend the winter nap a little bit longer. So our fields will be rested until March 30th, which is a 2-week delay from other years. We also had a discussion on World Cup. As some of you may be aware, it's a World Cup year. It's the largest sporting event in the entire world. Yep. And we have a group of soccer enthusiasts who are looking to have a watch party. I'm on the committee. If anybody has any ideas, it's a great community gathering. They want to do it for the home opening game, which is June 12th, and we will be having subcommittee meetings. Equally important to note, when we were at the League of Municipalities, there were sessions on World Cup and how it will impact New Jersey, particularly here where we're close to MetLife. So if anybody has any interest in getting involved with Ridgewood's watch party, we would welcome it. And obviously, within the state of New Jersey, this is going to be a big summer, and you're going to hear more about the impact with traffic and with stays and people and lodging. So that's that. I also wanted to say thank you to the Interfaith community. Several of us were invited and attended the Interfaith service. So effectively, Interfaith is where every house of worship sits and promotes one service that's non-denominational at the Old Paramus Church. It's a lovely event. I want to thank Old Paramus Church for hosting us and bringing it together. If you've never been, it's always the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And it's just a reminder that we're grateful to live here, have all that we have, but also have the clergy that we have that sits together despite, I'm sure, lots of differences in philosophy, and promotes a sense of gratitude the week before. Just a couple of things. I did want to take a brief moment and congratulate our intern from Lafayette College, Cole Duchang, who worked on the parks inventory process. He won the Patriot League men's final in men's soccer, and so we are so grateful when kids from these academic institutions, he worked on the inventory of what we have, how to detail it on the website, and we are so very proud of him academically, and now to get a championship was a big deal. And just so the public knows, I did go to Lafayette, so I'm equally as proud. So congratulations, Cole. I want to remind everybody that on Monday, we have the sensory-friendly tree lighting. This is a program if you have a neurodivergent child who can't handle a crowd or what's going to occur with the general celebration uptown. It's a quiet environment. The tree will be dark later Monday, and we want to thank Signal and everybody who will be there to create a quiet silent Christmas tree lighting, so the kids that have neurodivergent issues can process it and take it in. We're very thankful to Ridgewood Station Cafe. I hope everybody shows up to this. It's actually like a really beautiful, special way, and I feel so grateful that our village staff sits outside in the cold and listens to the countdown and lights the trees. And lastly, Stigma Free is running, making cards of joy to pass on holiday messages and like feelings of wellness and happiness during the season, because it's not always that happy time for everybody. So if anybody would like to attend any part of this, we had a session today. We're going to be including them at Access events, and I want to thank the Board of Health and Stigma Free. And I just want a gentle reminder that while the holidays are a time to be celebrated, it's also time to be a good neighbor, because there might be somebody who needs to be included, and that's a wonderful message from Stigma Free. And that's it.
Thanks, Siobhan. Evan.
Thanks so much. I will spare all of you the joke about my colleagues going to Atlantic City without me. With that, I just have two things.
Did you?
I did not. No, I did not. I do have two things just to bring up fairly quickly. Library did meet, doing great work. Really privileged to serve on that committee. And then just want to echo Siobhan's comments on Interfaith. I know most of us went. If you haven't gone, really wonderful event. About a dozen or so of our clergy in the Ridgewood area get together and do a joint service of Thanksgiving. Old Paramus Church did a really wonderful job hosting us on a really awful, rainy, cold, windy night. But really the warmth of the room outshined the cold outside. That's all I've got.
Nice. Thanks, Evan. Pam.
Even before we cut the ribbon at the Habernickel Playground, anybody who had any thought of, is this worth it, just had to see the kids running all over the place. It was so much fun. That's really going to be a great asset to our younger residents. The Ridgewood Business Alliance is up and running thanks to the ordinance that created it, and we are in full startup mode. It's not a village committee. It is an independent entity, but by statute, one member of the local government has to sit on it. And so I'm that one member, and so I'm reporting back to you all so you know that we are looking for office space, we've gotten insurance for our directors, we're looking at 501c3 status, and we are also in the middle of a search for an executive director. So if you know somebody who is interested in marketing or economic development and has great credentials, send them our way. We are taking applications now. The New Jersey League of Municipalities is where we get training. It is where we get great ideas. And it's like being in college. You're just kind of running from one class to another, and it's really very stimulating. And our staff goes also, and that helps with their certifications. The Ridgewood Arts Foundation continues to meet in the endeavor to draft the grant application to further the Warner Theater project. And so that's in full throttle as well. With regard to the Central Business District Advisory Committee, we do have an opening that recently opened up in the last month. And so if a resident is interested in working on that committee, we do focus on the downtown, and our next meeting is December 11th at 8:30 in the morning in the Senior Lounge. That's all I have.
Thanks, Pam. I'm going to recap a couple things. I got a couple of new ones. First, the Christmas tree on Friday. If you haven't been there, it's a wonderful night, and this year's tree is going to be dedicated to our very own Tony Damiano. It's going to be a very special night because the Central Business District was really something that he helped build. Million Minutes Challenge, I'm so happy about this because it's gotten everybody off the couch. Or not everybody, but if you haven't, it's not too late. It's a wonderful thing to do, and there's so many different ways to be part of the Million Minutes. It's not just, as I said before, getting on the treadmill or lifting weights. It's also spiritual wellness, family wellness, It's a really great thing. So I recommend it to everyone because it's not too late. The Interfaith Community Service, let me tell you something. I am almost in tears every time I go because, you know, around the world, wars have been fought between faiths. And here, all the different faiths gather together. Again, as Siobhan said, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, it is something you will never regret having gone to. Sensory-friendly dinner. I want to thank Siobhan for all the amazing work that she and our fearless leader Jamie Davis have done on this. It is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I want to thank the fire department and the police department because they always show up in uniform because the kids really love that. And I want to thank Ridgewood Station Cafe for hosting this. And now the new stuff. First, this Friday, earlier than the Christmas tree lighting, will be the ribbon cutting for the Kingsbridge Lane Bridge that was closed for so many years. Took it away, brought it back all shiny and new. What time is that one, Keith? New?
11.
11? Yeah, it's going to be a really nice day. So I recommend anyone who wants to attend. And lastly, for those of you who don't know him, Arturo Lewis has been the Reverend at the Bethlehem Lutheran Church for a while now. He has been a local resident. His son went to Ridgewood High School. And this man has been a giant in the community and somebody who I look up to. And he is moving. He is moving on with his life. He's retiring, and he's moving out to California to live with his son. And we are losing, there's going to be a hole that is going to be difficult to fill. And I just want to wish him Godspeed because he has always been there for our community. And with that, let's move on to our regular agenda. Keith.
Mayor, tonight I'd like to just take the agenda slightly out of order. We have Sergeant Torino from the Ridgewood Police Department, who along with Heather is going to speak on item 9B2. This is relative to the parking at the train station parking lot. So Ray, if you would come forward. And Heather, if you want to start the conversation. I know we discussed this at a previous work session, and following that discussion, Heather asked if we could revisit this at tonight's work session.
Correct. So the last time we discussed it, it was late in the meeting, it was late at night, and I think most of us didn't understand it fully, myself included, I have to say. And so I spoke with Sergeant Torino again about it. I tried, this is a very voluminous memo, however, I was trying to lay it out as best as I could so that you would understand it, because I understand it better myself. And so Sergeant Torino, if you could take it from here and just kind of give the proposal of what, so I do want to mention that myself, Keith Kasmark, Bob Rooney, who is our parking utility director, our court administrator, Erica Will, as well as Captain Glenn Ender and Sergeant Ray Torino, were meeting about this, and these were recommendations that came from that meeting. So, Sergeant Torino, if you would explain it.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Welcome, Ray.
Thank you. We've spent a lot of time on parking, on signage. We unfortunately see a lot of issues in the police department, with the PEOs, the park enforcement officers, and in court. A lot of our issues can be alleviated by making the process easier. We all know that we're a transportation hub, and we aren't doing the best job at creating rules that can be easily understood. Specifically to, right now what we're talking about is commuters and people that are trying to go into the city. We see really three groups of individuals that are using the commuter lot. The commuters who are paying properly to use the commuter lot, which is Station Plaza. Individuals who are going there thinking that they maybe can park there based upon how they're reading the signage, but then getting a summons. And then individuals that are rolling the dice and just parking there because in reality, the fee structure is set up that it's not a bad summons to get if you're not paying for a permit, if you're not paying for tolls, if you're not paying for parking in the city. Rolling the dice for $25 to go into the city might be a good deal. So really what we're trying to do is eliminate the confusion, make it a commuter lot, so when people pull into the Station Plaza, it says commuter parking only, or commuter parking by permit only. The fee structure is going to change slightly so that really it's in line with a proper penalty, which I think it's in the range, I think with Erica was talking about in the $50 range. I'm not going to deal with fines, but that seems to be more appropriate for somebody who is maybe rolling the dice to get away with parking in a commuter lot when they don't have a permit. And they're also taking that spot away from somebody who rightfully paid for it. So the idea we're having is simplify it, make it a permit parking only. The only change that we're really doing, we're changing it from at 9 o'clock, at 9 a.m., we say that if there's any open spots, anybody can park there for up to 3 hours. But let's be serious, if you're parking in that lot after 9 o'clock, you're parking there to go into the city, and you're getting a summons. What we're basically saying again is the only people that can park in there until 3 p.m. are commuters. If you don't have a commuter parking sticker, you're gonna get a summons for improper permit. At 3 p.m., we realize that some of the commuters are starting to come home. That's when the restaurants are opening up. That's also when people decide they might want to go into the city with their family. We are going to open it up to individuals at 3 p.m. that can park there for the rest of the night if they decide they want to use it as a parking lot to go into the city at 3 p.m. So there will be a 5-hour limit to park in the Station Plaza parking lot starting at 3 p.m. That would be Monday to Friday. The other idea is on Saturday, that lot remains rarely unfilled and unused. Again, being a commuter lot and a commuter town, a commuter hub, let individuals come into Ridgewood, use it for the 8 hours that it's a metered lot, and let them go into the city with their family. Let them go see a show. Let them go to restaurants in the city. Let them go wherever they want to go and use our lot, paying for 8 hours to use it on a Saturday. So that's what we're proposing. We're proposing making it strictly a commuter lot, make it easier, make the signage more readable, take the confusion out of the equation, and change the fee structure.
Thank you for that very clear explanation. Council, questions?
So just to be clear, that on the weekday, that it's to 8 p.m. because that's as long as the meters you have to pay until, correct?
Right, so we're going to change it that they can actually park there starting at 3 o'clock for 5 hours if they pay the meter.
And if they stay
Once
for
if they stay later because they're in the city, they're going to a Ranger game, they're going,
yes,
they're going to the rodeo. They can stay there as long as they want, up to overnight hours.
I'm supportive of the $50 fine. It's not a revenue-generating thing for the village, but if we have people that are depending on a spot, have spent a lot of money on a spot, and are trying to hit the express train, I can sympathize with that. To have them look for another spot and miss that express train because somebody decided to roll the dice, as you put it, I mean, listen, I'd even go higher, but I don't think I'd have the support on the council for it. But I do very much like that idea, because I think we have that obligation to our permit holders.
And just to make it perfectly clear, Sunday it's free and anybody can park there.
Correct.
I like it. My only question is with the West Side businesses, has that, I know that people park there and hop in, and like La Lanterna or Blue Sushi, have we spoken with them? And
So we haven't. We did do a 2-week study of that specific commuter lot. Mondays through Thursdays, it's packed with commuters.
Right.
At the overnight hours or the evening hours, as it starts to quiet down, as people start to come home from work, there are open spots that those restaurants can utilize.
Okay.
But during the day, the idea was brought up earlier councils that, well, if there's open spots, let people park and use those stores. We're not seeing that. We're
Okay.
seeing it strictly used as a commuter lot.
And I know it's on, but with that, have we looked at how many 15-minute meters are also over there? Because when I was on the West Side talking to people, like as one does, actually holiday shopping, there's so many 15-minute meter on West Avenue. So it's fine, we can talk about that another day, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that whole area of West
Yeah.
Ridgewood from Garber up to basically Library Place is 15 minutes. And that's been like that since I can remember. It was more because most of the stores there at the time
Or grab and go.
were rapid, grab and go, quick and easy stuff.
Through you, Mayor, to Councilmember Winograd, when the deputy mayor and I met with Walker, one of the topics we had was reviewing the 15-minute spaces, because we do have some shop owners that would prefer longer duration parking adjacent to their storefront. So that is something that we're talking to Walker about and is going to be considered as part of that study.
I think it's great. Look, I think the whole thing is great, but when you start to bring Garber in, it's going to bring the West Side in, and then they're going to start to go to the next thing of the meters. I think it's excellent for all great reasons. I think everybody should shop, dine in Ridgewood, and then hop on a train and go support New York City.
Go to a Rangers game
Yes.
with friends. Ray, I have a couple questions on the same topic that Siobhan has. So what's the lot like on Saturdays?
So on Saturdays, it's pretty empty. So it's not being utilized to its full abilities. And I think a lot of that has to do with, on Saturdays right now, it is a 3-hour limit. So if you want to go into the city on a Saturday, the only lot that we have that's more than 3 hours is the Cottage Street lot. That's a good 4 blocks, a good 4-block walk, 5-block walk from the train station.
But in terms of the businesses, so it doesn't get a lot of play on Saturday, which would be a local business
So on
day.
Saturday evenings, it's not completely filled, but I have seen nights during the holidays where Station Plaza is filled for parking. I don't see the entire lot being filled on a Saturday just for people going into the city.
What about during the day? And here's my question. Let me frame it. I'm completely on board with the whole idea. You have it at 3 o'clock. What about if it was done at noon? And I'm just thinking about people who want to come and shop.
Yeah.
Or have lunch. And that's why I'm asking about Saturday, because Saturday would, of course, be an even greater demand day for parking. So you don't
Yeah.
see much of that. Again, what do you think about noon?
It's very empty, specific to Saturdays.
Yep.
It's very empty. I mean, it's occupied maybe 10 to 15% on a Saturday. During the day, up until 3, 4,
Right.
5 o'clock, when people are either deciding to go into the city or restaurants are opening.
What do you think about doing it at noon instead of 3? Does that achieve the
It's
same?
only Monday through Friday.
Yeah, I know.
But
No, I'm asking about Saturday because Saturday is a greater demand day, just to get an idea of how many people use it. So I'm thinking Monday through Friday, if for the shopping there and for the dining, for lunch, if it was opened up at noon. I mean, does that
What do you
accomplish?
mean opened up at noon? That's the time that they can start parking there
Yes.
to go? So it would be an 8-hour max instead of a
Right.
10-hour max.
So what, does the noon opening up achieve the goals that you want to achieve?
I think the goals are still there. It's just adding that extra layer of signage that's going to
Yeah.
say, another layer of you're only allowed to park. You can pay here from 10 to 12. You can't pay to go into the city yet. You have to wait till 12 o'clock to then use it for.
And that's where the complication comes
That's
in,
where
and
the
that's one of the crux of the
Yeah.
conversation we're having with Walker, is how we simplify these things, because these little nuances
That we
make
have to
it intimidating to decide whether you're doing the right thing if you're parking
And
downtown.
maybe I'm not fully understanding it. What I'm saying is, you're saying that you're going to open it up to public parking at 3 o'clock, correct?
On a Saturday?
Monday through
No,
Friday.
no, during the week.
Monday through Friday.
Monday through
Monday
Friday.
through Friday.
Anybody can park there, just like they can now, which we're saying that they can do at 9 o'clock, but all that's doing is adding confusion.
Right, but you're
So-
bumping it to 3.
Monday through Friday, we're pumping it to 3.
Right, and what I'm saying is, what if you bumped it to noon?
The spots aren't there. The spots really aren't opening up until we get to that 3 o'clock hour. And I don't even think really the spots aren't opening up till 5 o'clock anyway.
Okay.
I just figured 3 o'clock was a good time if people wanted to come in, go to the city, do what they want to do and
I'm
use
good.
it as a community.
But the 3 o'clock Monday through Friday doesn't affect Saturday.
3 o'clock Monday through Friday.
Exactly.
Here,
Yeah.
I brought up Saturday just just as a frame of reference, not that I was interested in doing anything on Saturday, and everyone fixated on that. I was really just looking at it that it's a higher demand day, so if there's not really that much demand at noon, and there's less availability at noon, yeah, I'm good with the 3 o'clock.
So are we comfortable with this as written?
Yeah, I think it's
Make it so-
great.
all right. Ray, I'm going to ask you to wait 1 second.
Can I ask a question, though? We don't need to change an ordinance for that, do we?
Yes.
Okay, so that's going to go into effect late now, right? It's not immediate.
It'll go into effect in February.
Okay.
If we can just backtrack, I would like to just cover B1 under parking, which is the mid-block crosswalk that I talked about under the manager's report. I'm just going to ask Ray to stay in case there's any police questions on this. But as I mentioned, Chief Lyons had come to me maybe 2 months ago with some concerns about people parking in that, or crosswalk recommendation, because people were crossing from the lot over to the area where Tate Bakery is. He was concerned and had multiple officers report back to him about increased pedestrian traffic in that area. We had done some minor modifications, including signage that pointed people to the nearest crosswalk, which is maybe 30, 40 feet up the block. That was relatively unsuccessful. Chief came back. We had a meeting about this again, brought in the engineering department. We were looking at doing a temporary crosswalk, which is what has been established there now. They use 2 concrete blocks, which are traditionally used for the dining corrals, to establish almost like a temporary bump out to shorten the crosswalk area, which is our objective, as we talked about when we discussed bump outs at a prior work session. And the hope is that this crosswalk there will be successful, tested out over the holidays and as we get into the spring. And then from there, if it is successful, the engineering department has a plan to make it permanent with concrete curbs and things of that nature. So I just didn't know if anybody on the council had any police questions relative to this, because this really was generated from Chief Lyons. And I know Heather had observed it as well. But we do need to back this up with an ordinance as proposed in the packet tonight.
And I'm sorry, and the ordinance would just be for a test run and to reevaluate?
No, it would establish the park, it would establish it so we don't have to go back and do it
We wouldn't
again.
actually do the physical work until later next year.
Correct.
So if you
But
want
we
to
wouldn't do,
rescind-
we would have to rescind it if we retracted it, but thus far, with the week or so that
But
it's
if-
been up, I think the reaction has been somewhat positive to it. I know there was a fender bender out there. The streets division actually put reflective markings on those concrete blocks so people could see them better. But they would only be temporary until the springtime when we could do the concrete work, assuming that the pilot program is successful.
That's what I wanted to be sure of. I like the idea of doing a pilot program first before we start, installing stuff. So I'm in agreement with all that.
Yeah, as we get towards the road resurfacing and concrete work, bid specification going out in March and April, which I talked about in the manager's report, we would also ask the chief to give us an evaluation of what the findings are with the temporary crosswalk. And if there was a desire to move forward, we would include that as part of that bid specification.
That's what I wanted to hear. That's great.
All right, everybody's good with this?
I have 2 questions. So are the concrete barriers going to get snow markers with snow coming? Because I'm worried about our plows.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to put out more, we're thinking about putting up the tall bollards, just making them more visible. They're definitely protection right now because of how the length of the crosswalk itself. So it's that extra layer of security for the individuals that are coming into the crosswalk. It's going to eventually be that same distance because there will be bump outs, making it safer, because that is anybody who's walked it, it's a very long stretch, a long distance to walk in. But that's definitely something we're going to do for the winter.
Okay, and then my only other question, because someone asked me this, is how do we determine when crosswalks are aesthetically made brick? Because people are talking about the visualness of them, and then it was actually someone from beautification. We have lovely brick crosswalks, and there's always been the discussion of does that differentiation of color and the texture help, and do we do the brick crosswalks anymore?
That's something that we can talk about with resurfacing.
Okay.
The brick crosswalks that you see are allowed through the MUTCD. So if it's something that wants to be addressed when we do the resurfacing of East Ridgewood. We could definitely get that
Conversation we have to have with engineering.
Okay, I was just wondering if there was.
And I think it would probably occur when we do the resurfacing of East Ridgewood Avenue, which we talked about, when we talked about the bump outs at length at that work session. So, you know, I think that would probably be the time that we would do that work, because we would be resurfacing the road at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
And just so you know too, we actually have already had conversation with the staff from Streets that does the plowing in that area about this crosswalk and about those concrete blocks there, but we will also have markings as identifiers during a snow event.
Yeah, I saw them. I mean, I went by, I crossed it. No one tried to hit me.
I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I seem to recall that about 20 years ago, at the crosswalk from the post office across East Ridgewood Avenue, there was something shiny in the
Yeah.
roadway.
We did
And I
try.
loved it, because you came up to it and you realized, hey, there's a crosswalk. And now I don't see it anymore.
Yeah, it was very new for the time. We had these red strobes put in as you would cross, and they were always on at night. A lot of towns have gone to things like that, where it's actually a push button and it's a strobe that goes across. The last resurfacing, I don't know what the end result was. I think it was my first year that I was here, so my opinion didn't mean much when I was here at that time. But I don't know why they didn't really go to that or keep them, or if it was.
Maybe the plows ate them.
It was pretty set low to the ground on a little bit of an angle, so I don't think there was a plow issue. I don't know how it was, what the response was to it. But we've now moved on to the pedestrian strobe lights. That's more of, that's recognized by the MUTCD, which is the signs that we are allowed to do. and not
Somebody
allowed
has
to
to
do.
activate those.
Somebody has to activate those, yeah. And I don't know if there's
What-
anything, maybe
What
that
if
was
it
one of
was
the
motion
reasons.
censored?
They were always on. They were always on.
You could just see them better at night. They were like,
They
It's like a
certainly
land-
got
it's a
your
landing
attention.
strip, like a airport
Yeah.
landing strip.
I just think like larger discussion for the resurfacing is we should probably look at some of, because there's always the discussion of the paint, right? And the texture and these things. There might be added, especially mid-block, some improvements we could put in
And that's
there.
probably CBD. I know in
Yeah.
CSAC meetings, we've spoken about it before.
Yeah, because like in
Topic.
CSAC, like, they change what they look like, because then you don't become used to it, so
Right.
you're more likely to stop. So that's where, like, engineering would have some ideas on what to do. and
We can
sometimes-
certainly talk to them about
Yeah.
that as we prepare next year's bid spec.
So what are you thinking about it, Ray? You like the crosswalk? You like the idea of the bump out?
The volume has increased tremendously. There was always volume there with the parking lot, people that actually use the Cottage Street parking lot, going to Fox's.
Yep.
There are people that were always crossing there, no matter how many times we were there to say, use the crosswalk. They see the store that they want to go to, they cross at a diagonal.
Because that was always a tricky crossing area anyway, with the competing driveways across the street from one another.
driveways, yep.
But now that that steady flow of traffic, of pedestrian traffic to Tatay, just made it like
Yeah.
scary.
And visually, with the lip of the apron of the driveway to the Cottage Street lot, it's giving a straight visual to that pedestrian there. There's no line of sight issues right there. The other side, same, there's a driveway right there. The line of sight shouldn't be as bad. But I know that there's talk of taking a spot or two away. We had to take 2 spots already. My recommendation would be to take away another 1 or 2, just to make it a clear line of sight for those
Right.
pedestrians.
But you like this thing?
I think it's being used properly now.
Good.
I will tell you, there was a significant amount of internal debate on this. We were in the room for probably 2 hours debating the merits of this and a mid-block, but the police department was rather committed that while mid-block crosswalks are not the ideal, this was going to create a safer situation than what we had been dealing with up until the time that they created the temporary crosswalk.
Great. Thank you very much, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
It is amazing to see so much additional pedestrian traffic. It's like amazing. That area of town, really, one store can really generate so much.
So, let's move on.
Next up, we're going to go back to page 1, which is 9A, which is Ridgewood Water. Director Calby is here tonight. He has a number of items, 19 in total, and then 1 under budget. So
He'll be here for the rest of the night.
He has 20 items to talk
Just so I,
about this evening.
just so I understand, we've been here for an hour and a half, and we're at the beginning of the agenda. I just don't understand.
Just scratching the surface here. So,
All right, here
Rich,
we
the
go.
floor is yours.
Welcome, Rich.
Good evening, I'll be quick.
Just so you know, you're on a tight budget tonight. You know, I don't want to hear any of those big numbers, all right?
Yeah, it's hard to believe that another year has gone by, so a lot of this is annual contracts to set us up for next year. So I'll try to keep them as brief as possible. Stop me with questions, please. The first 5 items are all awards of bid contracts, service contracts for the water utility. The first one is the annual PFAS laboratory analysis services. This bid opening was November 19th. There were 5 bidders. The low bidder was Pace Analytical Services in the amount of $77,000. So the recommendation is to award a not-to-exceed contract to Pace, and this is funded out of the water utility operating budget.
Everybody good? Let's go.
The next bid was for the servicing and repair of electric source. This is for our hired electrician and his services. This bid was also opened on November 19th. There were 2 bidders. The low bidder was Venora Electric, Inc., and this is a not-to-exceed annual service contract in amount of $250,000. This is also funded out of the water utility operating budget.
That's good. Let's go.
Next one is for annual landscaping services for the cutting of all the lawns and the leaf removal at all the water properties. Also opened on November 19th. 2 bids were submitted. The low bidder was LTI Inc. in the amount of $147,495.00. This is also funded out of the water utility operating budget.
Everybody okay? Oh, question?
Yep. You know, the Board of Ed put out their RFP for a landscaper that would use electric-powered leaf blowers, and they got a big contract.
We have a copy of it.
Yeah.
We're going to look
So-
at it for the future.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's on. So the next time around, I would like you to consider that.
We're going to evaluate it. I don't know what their cost is. We have to look at the contract cost as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you hear in the back?
Good.
Can you hear in the back?
Yeah, I'll sit down. I'll sit down.
Okay. Good.
Okay, next item was a bid for the pipe and appurtenances. This is for all the pipe material, valves, hydrants, et cetera, that we utilize for all repairs and replacements. This was a bid opening on November 19th. There were 3 bidders. The low bidder was Capital Supply, and this is a not-to-exceed of $415,000, and this is funded out of the water utility operating budget.
Everybody okay?
Yep.
Good.
Next bid was for the furnishing and delivery of sodium hypochlorite. This is the disinfectant we use in the drinking water. This was a bid opening on November 19th. There was only a single bidder, Miracle Chemical Company, in the amount of $121,950. That will be the not to exceed for the contract year, and this is also funded out of the water utility operating budget.
Questions?
Is this cheaper than last year?
Last year's price was yes, it was $2.48.
Well, good.
So $2.44.
Do not try and put something past the deputy mayor again.
Yes.
Understand that? Let's go.
Now we're moving into non-bids but contract year continuations or awarding for the extended year, might be the 3rd or 4th option year. The first is the annual laboratory analysis services. This is for general testing, not outside of PFAS. This is also to Pace Lab in the amount not to exceed of $177,755.00. This is funded out of the water utility operating budget.
Everybody okay? Good.
Next is our cold water meters and accessories. These are the meters that are within all the consumers' homes. Additionally, meters that we have throughout the system. This is year 2 of 2 to Rio Supply and not to exceed amount of $263,451.70. This is also funded out of the water utility operating budget.
Everybody good? Let's go.
Next one is for the award of an optional extension year for the infrared asphalt surface repair to Atlantic Infrared. This is where we go and heat up the final surface and provide a nice, smooth, finished surface, particularly on newer paved roads. This is a not-to-exceed amount of $150,000 and also funded out of the water utility operating budget.
Good? Good. Let's go.
Next one is for our annual contract, also an optional extension year to award water service line replacements main to curbs. This is in addition to the larger lead service line project we're doing. This is to replace the main to curb lead service lines that are owned and operated by the utility, mainly in the street. This is the Conquest Construction, an amount not to exceed $150,000, and this is funded by the water utility capital budget.
Everybody good? Let's go.
Next is our annual tree maintenance services. This is your 2 of 2, recommended to Olmsted Tree and Shrub Care Company, North Haledon, not to exceed of $80,000 per year, funded out of the water utility operating budget.
I have a question. Yeah.
Yes.
So as I looked at this, I realized it's a different company than the village uses. And I wondered, maybe the question is to Keith, if not you, is would it make sense for us, or can we budget the tree stuff as Village Plus Water, or do they always have to be separate?
It's an accounting issue. The utility does a much larger amount, or covers a much larger area, for different municipalities, but yeah, I don't.
We also, for tree maintenance, we have a lower budget for the whole village than this, so.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if we made one bid for Village Plus Water, would we get a better deal?
But we
Or-
do our maintenance in-house. This is some of the maintenance.
Matt,
So
you
we
wanna
have
say
staff.
something?
I would, to your point, we do have contracts both on the village side through the Parks and Recreation Department and then through Ridgewood Water. From an auditing standpoint, we try to keep the two work efforts separate because one's coming from the utility budget, one's coming from the general fund. We can certainly talk to the vendor about whether there would be economy of scale there. No problem doing that. It just makes it a little bit more complicated from a budgetary standpoint.
Everybody okay?
Yep.
Let's go.
Okay, the next one is the optional extension year for the asphalt trench patching. This is for patching trenches that we open up for repairs and replacements just before the final course goes on. This is the Conquest Construction, amount not to exceed $200,000, funded out of the water utility operating budget.
Good? Let's go.
Next one is also extending the optional year on contract for concrete sidewalk restoration. This is also the Conquest Construction, not to exceed of $100,000, funded out of the water utility operating budget.
Questions?
So this is like if like you're repairing something and you destroy a sidewalk, that you'll fix it?
Best example right now is on Glen in front of the Arts Institute. We're putting a new pump
Yep.
station in. We'll utilize this contract to put the restored concrete back.
Okay, Evan, I know exactly what you're talking about, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next is for the optional extension year for the water billing and data collection services. This is the Computil. This is for all the quarterly billing that goes out to all the consumers. This is the second year of the renewal, annual fee of $345,700.00, and this is funded out of the water utility operating budget.
Questions? Nope. Let's go.
Okay, now we're moving on to security upgrades. This is Phase 2 of the security upgrades to the PFAS treatment facilities. This covers 3 of the plants, the West End Treatment Facility in Ridgewood, the East Ridgewood Treatment Facility in Ridgewood, and the Wharton Dyke Treatment Facility in Midland Park. This covers security cameras and door access controls. This is a cooperative contract, and not to exceed amount of $244,025.82 to Open System Integrators, and this is funded out of the water utility capital budget.
Everybody good? Yep. Let's go.
We're getting close. The next one is a final payment and closeout for the bank stabilization and 20-inch water main along the path easement where we had to restore the Hocus Brook
Dunham Trail.
Dunham Trail, thank you. It's getting late.
You know, I told you about that.
This is Colonelli Brothers in the amount of $25,237.00, and it's funded out of the water capital budget.
Everybody okay?
Yep.
Let's go.
The next one is a request to participate in an in-kind agreement with the New Jersey Institute of Technology Center for Translational Research. The center is performing groundbreaking research in PFAS. They're developing methods for testing PFAS in 24 hours, which will benefit utilities nationwide. In addition to that, they're studying methods to extend the life of the media that's in the vessels that we utilize, which again would be a groundbreaking improvement nationwide for all utilities. They're looking for cash commitments from utilities, but I've spoken to them and they've agreed that if we participate, they'll accept in-kind services, whereby we would utilize our water to help test their methods, maybe provide some of our lab services to help validate that. So I'm asking for a $2,500 commitment in the first year and $5,000 each subsequent year so that we could participate in that research.
I think this is fantastic. I was
Absolutely.
really
Same.
excited to see it. What I like is that they're going to test their different methods on our water. So I not only love this, I'd say if they can do more, let's do it. Great job.
Right.
Going into
Helps.
academia.
Helps when you have an alumni in charge of the board.
Yes. I wish they were there 6 years ago, quite honestly, but they're catching up now.
Sounds like you have support for this one.
Thank you.
Let's move.
So the next one is the short-term loan approvals for 3 of the last 4 PFAS treatment facilities. East Side facility, the Maine facility, and the Mountain facility. East Side is in Ridgewood, Maine is in Glen Rock, and Mountain is Wyckoff. All 3 of these projects have already been appropriated via bond ordinances. These resolutions are simply authorizing the short-term loans through the New Jersey Infrastructure Bank. It's a formality, they're written up by our bond counsel, but otherwise these projects have been approved already, and actually all 3 are under construction.
So this isn't additional monies?
It's not additional money.
Okay, you're just breaking up the bonds to little bits.
We borrow the money on a short-term basis from the iBank, and we pay none of that until the project is done. It's like the equivalent of like a student loan. You go to school, you don't pay until you're done. We don't pay until the project is done and operating. So this authorizes that short-term loan for those projects.
You were staying under budget until this.
Sort of blows it.
You kind of broke your budget.
There's one more coming up.
Yeah, I know. Go ahead.
The next one is the follow-up request from a prior closed session to enter into an easement agreement with 535 East Ridgewood Avenue. This is to permit the construction of a new water main that will connect the Irving well to the Prospect Treatment Facility in Glen Rock. The easement agreement has been negotiated. A copy is attached here, and the resolution will authorize the signature on that agreement and the transfer of the payment for the easement.
Good. Let's go.
And the final item for water tonight is also for the iBank. This is for lead service line replacements. This is not PFAS. This is in the amount of $18.8 million. Again, this is fully authorized by a prior bond ordinance. This is just for the short-term note authorization for the iBank. I can tell you we've let the first contract. We've begun work on this already, and the hope is we're not going to get close to the $18.8 million when we're all done, I hope.
Everybody good? Yep. Rich, thank you so much.
He's going to cover
stay up here.
C1 on the budget, which is under sanitation.
And this is a good news item. We bid the disposal of solid waste on a yearly or 2-year basis. And on November 19th, we took bids. There were 2 bidders. The unit price per ton came in at $91.88, which is the exact same price bid in the prior contract. So we were expecting or fearful that there would be an increase, but I'm glad to say that we're paying the same price moving forward for tipping our solid waste from the consumers in Ridgewood.
Good. Everybody good? Great.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Anything else
Rich.
for
Thanks, Rich.
Okay, moving on to Budget C2. The first request is an authorized emergency award of contract for a repair to a sanitary sewer line on Corsa Terrace. Back on November 5th, we discovered a damaged and compromised pipe sanitary sewer line on Corsa Terrace. During the efforts to clear the pipe, Water Pollution Control had their sewer jet truck and camera stuck in the pipe. We had a call in the support of the Hohokus Public Works Department, who used their hydro excavator and other large equipment to assist us. We determined that the sanitary sewer line was damaged and compromised to the extent that it needed to be replaced. This is not something we could address in-house, and we contacted J.A. Alexander Incorporated for assistance once the emergency was declared. The contractor performing the work is the same as the one who has done our village capital paving program for 2025. They came in and they commenced with the necessary repairs. Due to the emergency situation, we do need a council resolution that indicates such. This is a not-to-exceed contract of $113,215.87. And we are in discussion with PSE&G, who installed a natural gas main back in 2020 and may have some culpability, and we're exploring our insurance options relative to same.
Questions? Let's go.
Okay, item 3 is to authorize a change order for professional environmental services for laboratory analysis of collected samples relative to the removal of the abandoned fuel storage tanks on North Walnut Street. As you know, this project has been ongoing for some time. We've moved 11 abandoned tanks from under that parking lot. All of the work requires the assistance of a licensed site remediation professional, as we discussed tonight on another project, in order to continue with the environmental testing that's required. This will require the installation of groundwater and monitoring wells and periodic sampling. VHB, who we have worked with in the past, is the recommended vendor. This is a not-to-exceed $65,879.90, and it is available through capital funding on this project.
Questions?
No, but it's fascinating reading. It's just so interesting. I've highlighted the science is just amazing. Anyway.
I appreciate you so much, Deputy Mayor.
You know why he appreciates you? Because he's as nerdy as you are.
Keith, is this it, or do we anticipate any additional costs with this?
It's real. The short answer is no, but it really depends on what the environmental testing comes back with and what the DEP requires us to continue to do. In fairness, we have an LSRP on the Hudson Street garage, just to put things in perspective, that we still work with. I don't think you're going to be looking at this type of funding necessary moving forward, but until we make a decision on how to move forward with that property, I think there will be, the services of the LSRP will continue to be necessary. Okay? The next item, item 5, is to authorize a shared services agreement with the maintenance and repair of vehicles with the Borough of Paramus.
Wait, you missed C4.
I did miss 4. Okay. Actually, let's do Paramus first, if that's okay.
Okay.
So this is a resolution that would continue our agreement for the maintenance and repairs on our motorcycle units from the police department. And we'll continue under the same agreement that we've had in the past. We just need to renew.
Everybody
Cool.
good?
Right?
Good.
Circling back to 4, my apologies. Authorized change order for professional services contract for tax exemption matters related to properties owned by Valley Hospital. This has to do with the multiple Valley Hospital tax appeal matters that exist. We've had a professional relationship with Martin Allen, who's our legal counsel for these tax appeal matters. Marty has extensive experience in dealing with tax appeals relative to hospitals and healthcare centers throughout New Jersey, and we're seeking an additional $10,000 in funding to continue to procure his services.
Everybody good? Yeah. Let's go.
Okay, item 6 is transfer portions of the opioid abatement funds through a memorandum of agreement between the state of New Jersey and the local governments on opioid litigation recoveries with the County of Bergen and with the Ridgewood Board of Education. So what you have here is a memorandum from Bob Bruni, our Chief Financial Officer, who outlines the history of the national opioid litigation resolution. We've received approximately $100,000 for the program in 2025. We're looking to endeavor with 2 different organizations. The first is the Board of Education for use in education via school assemblies, student surveys, community awareness events, Narcan training and distribution. Such events will be for educating our residents about the impact of opioid use and misuse, harm, reduction services, addiction treatment, social services that address opioids. The second is with the County of Bergen to provide funds for their established opioid remediation programs that we have taken advantage of. So there's 2 respective resolutions to enter in to agreements with both organizations.
Everybody good? Let's go.
Okay, the next is also a memorandum from Bob Bruni, our Chief Financial Officer, regarding 2025 appropriation transfers. There is a resolution that outlines the to and from lines and also a page that explains the purpose of the transfers. There is $608,900 being transferred to the general operating accounts, $200 in the water account, and $955 in the parking accounts.
Questions? No. Let's go.
Okay, moving right along. Number 8 is a Chapter 159 budget amendment to accept the grant from the New Jersey Department of Human Services for the Division of Deaf and Hard of Hearing for the Hearing Loop grant, total amount of $70,000.
Anybody object to getting money? No, we're good.
In the fastest grant ever.
Yes, thank you, Carol Belkowski.
Yes.
Dylan, are you ready? Okay, so the next item is something that I have been working on since shortly after my arrival here. And we have been working with 2 different architectural firms to come up with some sort of barrier fencing on the 4th floor of the Hudson Street garage. Not long after my arrival here, an undisclosed resident sent this image that's up on the screen over Heather's shoulder to my attention. And we immediately began discussions with how we were going to address this issue. In this picture, Dylan, you can't put them up on all the screens? Okay. In this photo, you will see what I believe to be a teenager standing on the edge of the Hudson Street garage, cell phone in hand, in a very, very dangerous situation as the sun was setting in the background. This immediately caused us to start discussing what security measures we needed to take at the garage in order to address this concern. We, on a temporary basis, at the police department's recommendation, hired a private security firm to monitor the garage at times that were provided by the police department where we have the most influx of young people frequenting there. But both Bob Bruni, our parking director, and I both feel that we need a more permanent solution at the top of the garage to prevent a potential tragedy. So Bob has outlined in the memo that has been provided to you tonight that we are looking to maximize the security on the 4th floor of the garage by installing barriers along the exterior walls. This did take some engineering to figure out what those walls could sustain as far as some sort of barrier fencing to go along the perimeter. The choice of materials was limited due to wind shear impact and the precast walls. Epic, who was the initial contractor on the Hudson Street garage project, was engaged. They were asked to provide services to design and produce a recommendation for how we can shore up that area. The mounting of the screening to the precast walls requires technical knowledge, and they were able to come up with a recommendation. Epic had a field manager out there along with an architect, and they've designed the allowable screening to locate and support the posts and how they would need to be installed along the outer perimeter wall of the 4th floor. This would be a change order to the original contract. The total is not to exceed $350,000. We do have available capital through the parking utility. And while this is a big number, I really believe that this is necessary in light of the concerns of young people frequenting at the top of the garage.
What do these look like?
Yeah, exactly.
So I asked for a schematic. I do not have that yet. I also made a commitment to the Monsignor at Mount Carmel that we would share that with them. So we do not have that as of today, but I can provide that to you. It is decorative, and it will model the fencing, the decorative fencing that is in the open areas along the first floor.
So this is metal.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah, no, we went through a lot of different iterations of what could go here. Chain link fencing, all of that type of thing was not an option. It needed to meet the aesthetics of downtown, and I've heard from Heather and others, some of the controversies that went on about the aesthetics of the garage and how we were going to deal with that. That's what actually led me to meet with the Monsignor at Mount Carmel to talk about this. But once we have that, we will circulate it to you, but it will be appropriate and it will be decorative.
Is this climbable?
No, because it will be short. What it will do is it will prevent someone from standing on the edge of the garage.
Can we see it? I'm sorry. Can we see it before we approve it?
Well, I mean, if you authorize the resolution, I will move to make sure that you have an image of it before next week.
Well, Paul, can I?
There are schematics that are attached to this document, but I think you're looking for an actual design element so you know exactly what it looks like.
And for me, I fully support the safety of it, but $350,000 for a fence seems a lot, and so I'd like to be justified in that number.
I will tell you that, as I said, we've exhausted every option of trying to provide some sort of barrier up there. And in order for this to be installed properly and maintain the aesthetics, we believe that this is really the only option to move forward.
So it sounds like the aesthetics is what's driving the price up.
I think it's a combination. You can't just go up there and throw a chain link fence in. I mean, there were other options that we discussed. We can certainly have Bob come in. He's quarterbacked this for us and explain those to you if you'd like to do that. But I will just.
I would, and I don't mean to be, but to me, $350,000 is a lot of money. I mean, that's a mortgage.
It's a large area, though, Frank. If you.
It's did no disrespect, but it's a fence, right? Or it's a wall. And I just want to understand why it costs $350,000.
I think, don't be mad. The garage was such a source of conflict. It is in the historic district. I think we need an aesthetic. Don't be madder, but I think HPC needs to weigh in. And I think Mount Carmel's an important neighbor, but having been intimate with the garage discussion, there's the peekaboo section that goes to East Ridgewood Avenue, where you can see the top floor of the garage. So I think I'm all for it. I think that the safety is a big concern for all the obvious reasons. But I think the aesthetics will dictate the cost. That's probably why it's premium. But, I mean, Evan, you're HPC. I think, didn't the original garage go to HPC? It should probably go there.
Yeah, we were just looking to see when the next meeting was. I think it's actually.
Sorry, but we.
Listen, I've brought it to your attention.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you that this picture haunts me. It's haunted me since the day it was sent to me. And I will tell you that if there is one issue that I have really been motivated to address through Bob Rooney, it's this issue, because I do not want a kid to fall off the top of that building on my watch.
We are all on the same page on this. We just want to see it. And, I don't know.
I do know he asked for it because I wanted that to be the second visual tonight, but we did not get it from Epic. So what I will do is I will ask him to get that and provide it to you before we move forward.
Could we get it to HPC?
Yeah,
if they
we meet
on
Monday. Yeah, this Monday.
I mean, we can, it's this Monday night?
The 8th, yeah.
Yeah, I will work with him tomorrow to get the visual so you can be shared.
And Evan, if, again, not that they need to approve it or not approve it, but
I
if
wanna
they
get-
can move on it quick.
No,
that night.
right, I mean, I don't even know if we need to put it to a formal vote, but I want their feedback, and I
Yep.
can certainly report back to the five of us
Agreed.
separately, their views on it.
And Keith, the security's still there, the physical security?
It is, but again, it's not there 24 hours, so
Right.
that's the concern.
And did you say that the fencing will be mounted on the exterior of the wall?
No, it'll be on the flat surface of the wall.
On top, okay.
And Keith, when they're installing this, is there going to be some clearing of the walkway below, the sidewalk area, so that?
Yeah, they would have to take the necessary, and they're an architectural firm, it'll be overseen, and we'll take all the necessary safety precautions when it's actually being installed.
Okay. And I think that if you can get us this even before we get our packet.
This is-
Usually, the packet is like Tuesday night.
As soon as we have it, we'll send it to you.
Great, thank you very much.
And I just want to mention, this isn't an isolated incident.
Right.
There were other incidents as
Oh,
well,
I'm
where
aware.
there were several of them sitting on the wall. And God forbid someone came up behind them and said, boo, what if they were startled and just fell? So this is definitely something that is needed.
Yep. No, we're all, I think everyone's on the same page, it's just, let's just see what we're doing here and make sure, so. Next.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the award of contract for the hearing loop that we discussed under the prior issue. And again, the not to exceed is $62,500, and that's for all three of the identified rooms, the courtroom, the senior lounge, and the youth center.
Good. Let's go.
Okay, the next is the endorsement of a community development block grant for the lining of the sewer pipes. This is the area off of Broad Street that is identified as a CDBG eligible neighborhood. And we're looking to do an endorsement of this grant application in the amount of $450,000. I will tell you to set expectations, we're not going to get $450,000 because there's only a certain amount of monies available, but this is what we're going to make the request for.
Pretty good? Let's go.
Next is to authorize a change order for various hardware and software purchases. This is coming from Dylan Hanson up in IT, and this is for a change order in the amount of $8,843.75 with our state contract vendor of SHI International, originally awarded by Resolution 25368, and the reason to the increased expenditure is due to unexpected increases in software packages that the village utilizes.
Pretty good? Let's go.
Next item is an emergency, well, actually, that's redundant. We did that already, 13. Moving down to D1, this is to authorize an encroachment agreement at 102 Stanley Place. This resident is seeking to memorialize an existing encroachment on their property, has into the right-of-way of Stanley Place. The existing and proposed replacement encroachment can be seen in the attached copy of the residence property survey prepared by John Butler from Butler Surveying and Mapping. Chris points out in this memorandum that Stanley Place is a very narrow street with a 20-foot right-of-way per the tax map. There had been a minor fender bender there that I think brought this to the forefront, but Chris is making a recommendation that the village council approve this encroachment agreement.
Pretty good?
Yep.
I always thought that was a driveway.
Very narrow.
The next item is the community center is going to be held over to the January 7th work session. So the last item is under operations, which is to declare surplus property for police vehicles as listed.
Pretty good with that?
And that's all I have, Mayor. That concludes my portion of the agenda.
With the police surplus, that, like, do we get money back with those, or what do we do with the cars?
I'm sorry? I didn't hear your question.
With the surplus cars, do we sell those to somebody or how do we get rid of those?
No, so if you take a look at the memo, they will go back to be traded to Enterprise for fair market value, so we will get a residual from that. And it's a 2020 Chevy Tahoe, a 2018 Chevy Tahoe, and a 2017 Chevy Tahoe PPV.
Because, and I brought this up another time, and it sounds funny, but just being semi-serious, is that I've seen on college campuses where they'll take a car, like take a police car, and then people, and this is to raise money for different charities, they have giant sledgehammers and they pay to whack the car. And I'm just wondering if when we have a car that's really beat up, especially a police car.
So actually, if the vehicle has a residual value and we can get something back from
Yes.
Enterprise, which is the whole basis of our lease agreement, we're going to take advantage of that.
Agreed.
A vehicle that is junked goes to the fire department for training. So if you ever go to the recycling center and you look left, there's sometimes some beat-up vehicles back there. We primarily use those vehicles for the fire department to train with Jaws of Life and other saving devices. And then after that, fleet and the fire department have a process in which they junk those vehicles and the tower comes and takes them off-site.
So they don't put sledgehammers to them, they set them on fire.
Can we volunteer to do that?
Yeah, you know, I'm not crazy about that.
It's
but,
a little distressing that a 2020 vehicle, it has to be gotten rid of.
And here, let me jump in on this one. And the reason is that while your car and my car gets used an hour or two a day, these are in continuous, because I've asked that question. These are in continuous.
The wear and tear on a police department is endless. The police department vehicle is endless.
It's not the same as what we do with the car. So, and with that, let's go to public comment. Audience?
Good evening again, Ann Loving, Ridgewood resident. Just a couple things I wanted to mention. First is, I really don't know what goes on with the chairs up there. I've mentioned this before. Constantly, you guys seem to be very uncomfortable, and I feel bad about it. For example, Mr. White's is standing right now. The chairs out here, we never have to get up, and we're here the same amount of time you are, so maybe you might want to try these chairs up there. I'm not being facetious, I've mentioned this before. The second thing is regarding the flashing lights at the crosswalks. I walk to council meetings most nights, and I love those lights at South North Irving and Ridgewood Avenue. They're fantastic. So the more you can put those up around town, the better. The next thing is regarding the village code. I have a suggestion. I had a little back and forth with Deputy Mayor Perrin a few weeks ago because she talked about the village code and the manner of addressing the council, and she kindly, responded to me. I think that the code should not be the manner of addressing the council because sometimes the council addresses the public in an inappropriate way, and I think maybe you might want to look at that, the manner of everybody addressing everybody. The deputy mayor did say that code sections 319 and 320 apply to everyone in the room, but it doesn't read that way. The way I read it, it's strictly about the manner in which we can address you. I'm just saying it might be something to look at because I've actually been addressed improperly from the dais at one point or another myself. Okay, just a suggestion. Another thing, regarding the aesthetics of the fence at the top, I do not think aesthetics should be important. As far as I am concerned, safety should be the main thing. I don't think people are walking around looking up at the top of the garage. I mean, the garage is ugly to begin with. It's like, just make it safe. And to Councilman Mortimer's point, if it could be a little less than $350,000 and be safe and unclimbable, well, that would be just much better, in my opinion. I don't think aesthetics way up there matters. Lastly, regards this new thing of bells ringing, we're not in elementary school. I don't know whose idea that was, but it seems really intimidating. I think most people respect the buzzer at the end of 3 minutes. Sometimes you courteously, in fact, tonight, you let somebody go over by a number of seconds. I think the bells thing is just intimidating. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Good evening, Boyd A. Loving, Ridgewood resident and taxpayer. Mr. Mayor, with all due respect, I think we will agree to disagree about the comment silly. You know, and I'm sure you know, how emotional this issue is, the issue of Shedler is, for many people who live in the neighborhood. Some have come up here and cried. So for somebody to have a public comment and for another person to say they're silly and crazy, I just think is inappropriate. So you said, well, I heard it and I just kind of passed it off. In the future, I think, or I would request that you respect the fact that that is a very emotional issue for a lot of people. And they don't want to stand up here and pour their hearts out about this matter and then have another person say, well, they're silly and crazy. So if we can just agree that it's an emotional issue for some people and you've got to be very careful if somebody else says something nasty about them and stop it. Thank you very much.
Agreed. Thank you, Boyd. Let's go to public comment. Mr. Hallaby.
Yes, Rurik Hallaby, village resident. I miss those emotional people under the old regime when I used to be the voice in the wilderness fighting against turning Shedler into a dump. And none of these people showed up to support it. Now, everybody is being so emotional. Now, let me say, I made reference to city as to an idea. When people talked about the fact that you couldn't touch Shedler because there are eagles nesting, I can tell you, it is a silly idea because it's either benighted or disingenuous. Because anyone who knows anything about eagles will tell you, eagles nest near large bodies of water since they eat fish, plus their nests weigh anywhere from 1 to 2 tons, so that you'll have to put together all the trees in Shedler to be able to support one nest. So it wasn't the people I was calling silly. And believe me, Paul, I can tell you, I thought long and hard about the word silly. I could have used a much earthier word, but I knew you wouldn't like it. Secondly, as far as crazy, I made reference to my idea of the solar panels lining the highway as being another crazy idea by Rurik. I mean, to me, crazy ideas is not necessarily a bad idea. It's just something outside the box. So people, before they get on their high horse and start lecturing people, they should really listen to what is being said. Because I bent over backwards to be as conciliatory to people I disagree with terribly, and just say, hey, let's get together, work with the village council. So I have no way of in any way apologizing for the word silly or crazy. Thank you.
Thank you, Rurik. Cynthia, you're up.
Hi, Cynthia, resident. Can you hear me?
We can.
Excellent. I just wanted to clear up one point that was made. Siobhan mentioned that, I guess the last council, you made a recommendation that they should have used an LSRP. And I do agree, but you said we did hire one, but you were mandated to hire one. So, when you're making a statement, you can't say, well, they didn't do it, but we did it. You had to do it because the NJDEP mandated you. So you didn't do it out of, actually we were told the soil was not contaminated, and it was a neighbor that reached out to the NJDEP, which is when, they felt there was a sense of, urgency to this, and they sent you the letter, I believe it was last December. So that just clears up that point. And then, I brought up about the communication to neighbors with the remediation plan. And I guess I just wanted to know, is there an alert process that would consist of, a call tree or emails? You know, you're talking about a very serious remediation that's going to involve a lot of moving parts, and it doesn't seem smart to me if you don't have the contact information for everybody in that neighborhood. You know, that seems pretty serious. And then the last question I have is, we talked about the 35 trees, which I'm assuming is just the beginning. Do you have like a plan of various sets of trees and the total number that will be removed? Because, you know, you talked about 35. It seems to me that when the trees are removed off the berm and cleaned off and whatnot, replanted, would additional trees then need to be removed where you're going to replant the, you know, the former berm trees, the new barrier trees? So how is this going to work and how will this be communicated? Transparency is key, and, you know, I'd really like to know some answers to these questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Anybody else? Seeing no one, I'm going to close public comment. Would anyone like to respond to any of the comments made?
Mayor, the only thing I will say is that the 35 trees that need to be removed within the area of excavation, they will need to be removed. There's no scenario where those trees are able to remain. With regard to the relocation of the 80 trees from the berm to the north end of the property, that area where there are 2 rows along the northern end of the property is fully shown on the approved Shedler property schematic, the plan. So you can clearly see where those trees are intended to be planted once Downs begins that work.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Resolution to go into closed session.
So moved.
Be resolved by the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood that the Village Council meet in closed session on December 3rd, 2025 at 7:30 p.m. or soon thereafter as a matter on the agenda can be reached, and that said closed session be held in the caucus room on the 4th floor of the Ridgewood Village Hall, 131 North Maple Avenue, Ridgewood, New Jersey. Be it further resolved that the matters to be discussed in closed session are limited to legal matters to include Kensington traffic expert, vacation of village property, Grandview Circle, and personnel matters to include annual performance review of village clerk and village manager. These matters are allowable under NJSA 10:4-12 at second. Be it further resolved that the minutes of this meeting shall be made available to the general public when such matters have been deemed completed by resolution of the Village Council. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thanks.